Did you know that some countries have capital cities that were intended to house millions of people but are now essentially deserted? And that the United States squandered $17 billion on a mega project that has since been abandoned to this day, fully useless? Interstate H3 in Hawaii, number 5. Let's begin with a road in Hawaii, the Aloha State, that is incredibly beautiful. One of the most breathtaking vistas in the world is traversed by the 26-kilometer-long Interstate H3. It is astounding that there were actual worries about drivers halting and posing a danger to the flow of traffic. The highway is, however, just as contentious as it is attractive. Defense consideration led to its initial proposal in 1960, as the road would link the Marine Corps Air Station on the east coast with the south side of Pearl Harbor Naval Base. When it was announced that it would be built, environmental organizations as well as native Hawaiians who were concerned about the project's vast urbanization immediately voiced their opposition. The plans were perpetually postponed because to the time's environmental regulation and a modification en route to project the adjacent valleys. After 26 years, the project's environmental barrier were eliminated when the legislature exempted it from the environmental legislation, paving the path for the construction to start in 1989. Almost 37 years after it was first suggested, the roadway was ultimately completed and opened in 1997. Due to its challenging geography and cutting-edge technical techniques, Interstate H3 is frequently regarded as an engineering wonder. In order to safeguard the local ecosystem in the valley below, the highway runs almost entirely over viaducts in addition to the several high-tech tunnels. It was finished 5 times over the planned budget because to decades of delay, route modifications and newer but more expensive technologies. The overall cost of construction was $1.3 billion or nearly $50 million per kilometer, making it the most costly per kilometer in the world. This gorgeous highway isn't necessary for everyone despite being big budget. Because of the outdated defense factor from the 1960s and the lack of a straight route from the highways to downtown Honolulu, critics claim that it is a road to nowhere. Then there is the issue of native Hawaiians, the majority of whom still oppose using the H3. Due to the numerous religiously significant culture sites that were destroyed during the construction, they believe it to be cursed. In terms of mega projects, the Interstate H3 highway is undoubtedly a success. Yet, for some native communities, it is still useless. Unlike the project on our list after it, this one hasn't fully been abandoned. Spain's Ciudad Real Central Airport is ranked 4th. The idea for the Ciudad Real Central Airport was developed with the knowledge that Spain is one of the most popular travel destinations in all Europe. It was predicted to become a popular vacation spot for both domestic and foreign visitors. The idea was to create a replacement for Madrid's already incredibly crowded main airport with this new airport. With a capacity of 2 million passengers per year, the new airport had one of the top 5 longest runway in all Europe. When compared to Madrid's 70 million passenger capacity, that amount is quite small. To increase the capacity to 10 million annually, however, expansion plans were already in place. 1.35 billion cost may have seemed reasonable when it finally started operating in 2009. All of these plans, however, were abruptly put on hold in 2012 when the project's parent company declared bankruptcy. The project's location was the first source of issue, although it was called the Central Airport given that Madrid was 200 kilometers away. It was anything but central. The majority of passengers avoided driving for hours to reach the remote location, and the majority of major airlines preferred to conduct flights operation from the capital, which made matter worse. So, the newly constructed airport was down to just one small-time airline within the first year of operation. The airport had a $350 million debt by 2012 due to the lack of major airlines to draw travelers. Naturally, it was placed in receivership and put up for auction in 2013. In 2014, the popular British television program Top Gear even made the airport famous as an abandoned location. In 2019, the airport was finally sold to new owners after several auctions, including one that featured an outrageous 12,000 bid fail. The Ciudad Real airport received a lifeline as business collapsed and profits dropped due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Given the airport's dry climate, long runway, and spaciousness, the new owner decided to reinvent it as a home for grounded planes with little hope for passengers returning. The airport had 65 aircraft parked there as of August 2020, and there were expansions planned to create a storage facility for more than 300 aircraft. The airport was given a much-needed commercial opportunity by this novel storage strategy, although the return to regular flight operation is still far off. All the planes that have been stored will eventually be gone once the pandemic finally is over. For passengers around the world, this multi-billion-dollar megaproject is essentially useless. Number 3. Naypyidaw, Myanmar. The next major undertaking was another one of that was featured on Top Gear. But this isn't just a tiny airport, it's Myanmar's brand new freshly constructed capital. In 2002, a new capital was being constructed covertly by Myanmar's former military administration. It is not unheard of for a nation to move its capital. In the past, this has happened in numerous nations including Brazil, Egypt, and Pakistan. The decision was made public by the government of Myanmar in November 2005, but the new capital's name remained a secret. He finally disclosed the name Naypyidaw, which is Burmese for the king's residence, 4 months later. There were no obvious explanation for this abrupt shift of capital. Some conjectured that the military command had changed due to astrological council, while others believed it was due to a fear of an attack from the sea. However, a significant portion of it concerned Yangon, the previous capital. 7 million people live in Yangon, which is expected to treble in size by 2050, despite having reportedly exhausted its infrastructure's capacity. In addition, the seaside city was designed as the capital during British control in order to support the British Navy, so it made sense for Myanmar to move the capital to a more central location. The new project was completed quickly, and up to this point $4 billion had been invested in the city by various governments. Naypyidaw appears to have everything to draw tourists: a 20-lane motorway, more than 100 opulent hotels organized into 3 hotel districts, golf courses, museums, and even a 99-meter tall duplicate of a landmark that was originally located in Yangon. But one crucial element is still missing: the population. Less than 1 million people live in the new capital, the most of whom are founded in the suburb that were already there before the city was designed as the capital. But why does nobody want to live in there? Most of the population is hesitant to settle permanently in the city due to a persistent shortage of health facilities, high-quality educational institutions, and employment possibilities. As a result, the city frequently gives the impression of being deserted and is commonly referred as to a ghost town. The magnificent 20-lane roadway is almost completely deserted. Congestion is unheard of, yet occasionally one car is seen drifting along the enormous road. The city boasts an airport that can accommodate 3.5 million passengers annually, yet on a busy day, just 12 people will actually utilize it. The diplomatic personnel only visit the malls on the weekend, while the hotel's lobbies are typically empty. There is some good news for the royal capital despite its appearance of desolation. With its futuristic design and rapidly growing population, Naypyidaw still has time to experience its inevitable redemption. For the time being, it is arguably the oddest capital in the entire globe and is still largely useless to the majority of its populace. Number 2. Malaysia's Forest City. After discussing an alleged ghost city, a green, futuristic smart city is the next item on our list. It would be constructed around an artificial forest ecosystem and rise from reclaimed ground on 4 artificial islands. For investors looking to profit from its proximity to the autonomous city-state of Singapore, Forest City's position make it a desirable wager. Singapore boasts the second busiest port in the world and a booming economy. The second link bridge built by the developers already connect Forest City to Singapore, cutting the travel time between the two cities to just 20 minutes. Additionally, Forest City will have a customs facility of its own, allowing citizens to easily travel to Singapore and return. Many eco-friendly improvements are said to be incorporated in the new design. Buildings in Forest City will have green rooftops and vertical gardens, creating the feeling of being in the jungle. The layout of city streets will have numerous layers, with the lower layer serving as the roadway and parking areas, and the upper layer housing recreational areas, stadiums and transportation hubs. The metropolis, which will be entirely powered by renewable energy, will be finished by 2035 at a cost of 100 billion. An island with 50 apartment structures, golf courses, swimming pools and beaches is one of the 4 that have been proposed. However, this extremely ambitious undertaking is not without its challenges. Already a plethora of political and economic barriers are impeding its development. Chinese citizens essentially enjoyed a free pass to the city during the first few years of building, because the project is primarily sponsored by China. Rich Chinese investors raced to Forest City as a result, since they could not afford the skyrocketing rates of flats in their own nation. By 2019, Chinese people owned 80% of the properties. The few new schools that have opened in the neighborhood are now offering Mandarin classes, and even the street signs are in Mandarin. Due to the property prices being set only with the Chinese markets in mind, native Malaysians simply cannot afford to purchase these apartments. An uproar was generated by the flood of China investors, which opponents of the project saw as a new type of colonialism. In order to prevent foreigners from acquiring properties in the Forest City after a change in government, Mahathir Mohamad, the new prime minister, enacted a prohibition. Foreigners began abandoning the city in large number, discouraging prospective investments. The epidemic and the global travel prohibition were the next significant setback. Due to Malaysia's migration control order, no new investors may settle there. Due to the uncertainty, many previous investors withdrew from the project. Less than 500 individuals were actually residing in the residential complexes. Since the commencement of the coronavirus pandemic, some salespeople have claimed that fewer than 10 homes have been sold at Forest City, and the project has remained in flux. Additionally, Country Garden fired almost 1,000 of its Malaysian employees in the previous years, a reflection of the project's dramatic decline in fortunes. To begin with, Forest City was undoubtedly overly grandiose, too futuristic to actually realize, and too politically unstable to ever thrive. It is safe to say that Forest City is today a pointless mega project despite the billions of dollars invested. Yucca Mountain Nuclear Waste Repository is ranked first. A mega project that was planned in light of a delicate global issue will round off this list. Compared to other environmental issues, nuclear waste is not as frequently discussed. It can be more deadly than anything ever since the dawn of humanity, though if not sorted properly. Nuclear waste is being kept above ground close to the power station it originated from. The scientific community does concur that burying this hazardous material far underground is the safest method for long-term disposal. The American government began looking for a long-term solution to this pending garbage issue in 1980s. Nevada's Yucca Mountain was chosen as the best alternative in 1987. It was far from any population centers and close to the most popular nuclear testing site in the USA. The trash from all around the nation was to be dumped in a tunnel complex that was located about 300 meters beneath Yucca Mountain. Yucca Mountain is not just a remote location, but is also composed of ancient volcanic ashes. This prevents the Yucca Mountain from crumbling and splitting while absorbing any radioactive waste. On paper, Yucca Mountain appeared like a fantastic place to build a repository, but Nevada has none of it. There were approximately 100 nuclear reactor sites in the US, both open and closed, spread over 34 states, but none were located in Nevada. As a result, the public and congressional representatives fiercely rejected the idea of serving as the nation's sole nuclear waste repository. The official hydrological and geological survey of Yucca Mountain have also come under scrutiny. The possibility of contaminating a local water supply led opponents to argue that the location was inappropriate for a repository. Native Americans who have lived in the area for millennia use the water source that flows into Amargosa Valley. The Department of Energy resumed construction after the project was approved in 2002 despite resistance. Nevada, though, only grew more hostile. They argued that frequent exposure while traveling would stigmatize Nevadans and hurt the state of tourism industry. According to the opponents, Nevada's lesser population and reduced representation in Congress are the main reason that the state is receiving the repository. The project was already heavily politicized by the time Barack Obama took office, and in 2010 the Obama administration decided it was no longer viable and stopped supporting it. A federal judge ordered it is restored 3 years later, but since then little has changed. Yucca Mountain is no longer a part of the country's ambitions according to the Biden administration. After 40 years, Nevada looks to have prevailed. The Yucca Mountain project took decades to plan, was plagued by legal issue and cost over $17 billion, but in the end it was never used and is still considered to be a useless mega project. What do you think about these massive initiatives then? Do any of these have a chance of becoming helpful in the future in your opinion? Tell us in the comment section below. Watch our video about the biggest mega projects never finished to learn more about comparable projects. We appreciate your time and hope to see you in the next video. Bye!